the end of a year. A year is a cycle of time. Time is a cycle of the spirit. It's a cycle of experience. And so every year, each one goes through their own experience. Each one is traveling in their own universe. Nobody else has ever been in the spiritual space that you're occupying right now. Your perception, the way that you see the world, your thoughts, your beliefs, your experiences are individual to you. Nobody else had any of them the way that you had them. And so, in this cycle, we evolve. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly coming closer to some type of perfection, a perfection we don't know yet, perfection we've never experienced. It's no different than a plant, a flower. An animal grows fairly quickly, so we don't really realize the difference in experience within the animal as it ages. Within humanity, we can see externally there are signs and symptoms of aging that show that the experience is changing from within. The brain is drying up. It's becoming more fixed in its beliefs and its opinions and its tastes. And the body itself is more inclined to be concerned with its spiritual side, with its emotions or thoughts, than enjoying the physical. The physical joys become less attractive. And so the body is transitioning. So obviously the experience is very different. The internal spiritual truth, which cannot be quantified, is unique in its quality to each individual and to each moment. And so all of this is happening so that a specific manifestation of reality comes out into fruition, so that the fruit, the ultimate fruit of the world, which is the most evolved species on the planet, can ripen, can become aware enough of itself to control its own destiny in a way that takes all of humanity away from suffering and into joy, into bliss, into pleasure, into interactions that build the human experience, that build the desire for life. And so, for generations, thousands of years, this truth, foreseen by the wise from a very early time, will become the destiny of all when the human mind, the human heart, are intelligent enough to interact with reality the way that those wise men did in the past. And according to our understanding, humanity should be extremely close by now, and maybe, according to what we've received from the big people that have come before us, those who had the spiritual vision, they claim that humanity has been ready for hundreds of years. Simply, the emotional damage left from the time when humanity was still evolving to this level of intelligence, is still so prevalent, is still so ingrained in the masses, that the wisdom cannot find root yet. The wisdom is not giving them enough pleasure to allow them to overcome the anger and frustration caused by the history of violence, the history of abuse, the history of trauma that's stored within the organs of humanity, stored within the families, within the traditions, within the cultures, within the rituals. And so, humanity is waiting for a time when kindness overtakes the hearts of humanity, so that then the wisdom can be introduced and it will be believed. It will be understood, because the wisdom is really the default understanding of the human mind. And that's what we call intuition. The default understanding is the original intelligence of the organs to understand reality. This is what they were designed for. So there is no specific need for humanity to understand its premise unless it has the emotional maturity to know what to do with that understanding. So the goal is to remove the frustration from the human heart. The goal is to create an environment where a generation can be raised that doesn't face disappointment, that doesn't face frustration, that only has positive associations to humanity and to the spirit, to the spiritual, so that it doesn't have thoughts that are anti-humanity, that want to hurt humanity or cause damage in any way. And so when that generation will be raised, that generation will see a reality that can only be loved. That's the natural response of the organs. And then their relationship with the Creator will never be tainted, will never be contaminated with any doubt, with any distance, with any disappointment. And therefore, they will be able to climb the ladder of wisdom in ways never before imagined. Their relationship with the Creator will become so intimate that they will be able to control their destiny from within. They won't have to toil with the ground the way that we do today. And so this is the vision. And every year, at this time of the year, we remember the original vision. We remember the vision because that vision is the reason for everything that's taking place. That vision will manifest. There's no doubt, there's no question. Just as sure as what we have now is real, just as surely the purpose of why it is here will be real. But the question is, are we intelligent enough? Are we mature enough? Are we kind enough to tap into that ultimate desire? Now, that ultimate desire, when it forces itself upon us, we call that the attribute of severity, because it's a form of judgment. When we're forced to be a certain way, that's a form of judgment. However, this judgment is the greatest kindness. This judgment wants to force upon us a good that is better than anything humanity can imagine. And therefore, this attribute of severity, this cause of suffering, which forces us to realize truth, forces us to face reality. This force is represented in the skies by the sign of the maznaim, the scales. The scales is the power designed by the wisdom within nature to balance all the different forces within man in order to create an equilibrium, in order to create a balance where humanity can become the way they were ultimately designed to be. So this balance is the balance between how far will we be allowed to stray into the imagination before we get tugged back to reality. The closer the wisdom is to a person, the less he will be able to go far before the attribute of severity will pull him back, will bring him back to reality, won't allow him to go too far into his imagination so he doesn't get into real danger. But a person who is far from wisdom, he doesn't know to tell the difference. He's deep in the imagination with no real way out, with no real hope of how to find home, of how to find reality. And so every year, Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year, it's the beginning of your work, the beginning of your work, the beginning of us, the beginning of this experience, the beginning of the reason why your day today looked the way that it did, and why your emotions are in the state that they are, and why you believe what you believe, and think what you think, and feel what you feel, and do what you do. So the beginning of that story is now coming up into the memory, and the spirit is dealing with that concept. Did I make a good choice? Did I make a bad choice? How's it going? Are we making progress? Are we getting closer? Are we more distant? Is the world ready to receive kindness? Are they still busy fighting with each other like little children? So this gets reviewed every time we remember in the new cycle the purpose of why there are cycles in the first place. So the Anshe Knesset Agdoyle, when they prepared the prayers for us, they wanted the spirit to be exposed to these concepts, specifically at this time. And this is how they created the Machzer, the prayer book for the holidays. Each holiday has things that were designed specifically by those who understood the wisdom to bring to the minds of the people, to bring to the eyes of the spirit the ideas and concepts that are taking place intrinsically based on the wisdom that created us, based on the cycles of life that are beyond our understanding. These were the secrets that the ancient people who spent decades on wisdom would keep as their prized possession, understanding the inner workings of the planets and the stars, on the evolution of humanity, on the creation of everything that's on this planet, and the maintenance to evolve them to the place where they need to arrive to. So now we're going to go through a little bit from the Machzer. So we add in the third bracha is the third blessing of the 18 in Shemana Esrei. So we add, this is the only time in the year where we add in that blessing. So we add a discussion about the holiness of the design that we were created in, which is the king. The king is the specific design that we were designed to be. And so as we veer from our design, we veer away from the king. because this is our relationship with the Infinite One. The Infinite One designed us in such a way that we are not fully united with ourselves yet. We can be angry with ourselves. We can be frustrated with ourselves. We can have too little confidence in ourselves, which means that we're not really united in concept with who we are. So in the world of concept, we are two. In the world of concept, we are the being that was created. And in the world of concept, we are the thoughts, words, and actions that it creates. So these two don't always get along. Our concept of who we were created to be and our concept of how we're interacting with reality in thought, speech, and action don't always get along. So the unification of the one that is the realization that the source, the one that created the design, is perfect. The mind has to believe that before it can unite with it. As long as the mind objects to anything, the mind is essentially rebelling, because the mind has no basis in reality. The mind is just a thought. So if the thought is not agreeing with what already is, so then what we think and what we are cannot unite, because we are what is. We are always going to remain in reality. We can't leave to the imagined illusions of the thoughts. The imagination is not a real location. The imagination draws and gives us access to interpretations of reality. But it all is based, it's all tied, it's all using one real source in order to be created, in order to imagine whatever we imagine. We use reality, we use the life force made available to us by reality in order to imagine other realities, in order to argue with reality, why it isn't what we want it to be. And such a mind cannot unite with what already is, cannot surrender to the king. So in the third bracha we say, Ata Kodesh, you are king, the merciful one, the being that was designed to be human, the ultimate human, the perfect human, that was originally foreseen by the infinite wisdom. And because of that one, it decided to create all of us. So that one is holy. That way of being is holy. Holy means it's designated for wisdom. It resides in wisdom. It doesn't separate into illusion. V'Shemcha Kodesh, your name is the knowledge of you, the knowledge about you is holy, because the knowledge about you becomes you. You and your name are one. If somebody knows the name fully, then he becomes that human. The holy ones, meaning the ones who designate themselves to wisdom, will praise you every day, because they know that in order to gain wisdom, they need to secure the relationship with you. And they know that when they praise, they're creating angels that are going to create more importance for this relationship. They're going to emphasize within the spirit the need to never violate this reality, to never violate this truth. So they will praise you every day because you're a holy force that is the king, that is big and holy. So again, what we're doing here is we're raising the concept in our minds, we're raising the reality within our perception, we're explaining to our imagination the real nature of the being that is our king. The being that is our king is the one that's judging us and rewarding us. It's the source from where we receive life. Based on how our relationship is with the king, in accordance with that, we receive life. In accordance with that, we receive our spiritual experience. So, therefore, we want to recognize his power, we want to recognize the potential of the Spirit. The potential of the Spirit is prophecy. We want to realize that it's a king, meaning it has specific details within its design that need to be respected, that need to be seen, recognized, even though they're spiritual, even though they're not visible to the senses, but they're real and they are in charge of your well-being. If you violate them, even though they're invisible, you will end up causing suffering. And therefore, you're the king. And you're big in the ancient world. The word big meant somebody was kind. Why does big mean kind? Because small people can't afford to be kind. A small person means he's busy with little things. He sees only himself. He's not really there fully. He's small. But when the Spirit is big means the Spirit's comfortable. The Spirit understands, the Spirit sees. So the word chesed, kindness, is also called godel, big. And from this kindness comes all types of growth. So for example, if a person has a big body, it means that the Spirit allowed it to grow to become that size. So that even that growth, or for a tree, that it can have many branches, all that is a show of kindness. So any type of growth, any type of increase shows the inherent kindness within reality. So therefore, greatness, the middle of kindness, and holiness. Holiness means not contaminated by illusions of the imagination, not contaminated by things that seem good, but really they're bad. Or they seem bad, but really they're good. All this is the imagination playing tricks, and then man falls for it, and then he cries. Why is it so painful? So here we start adding. From generation to generation, they would crown this force, the spiritual force, as king. Because whoever has the most spiritual force has the most intelligence. Whoever has the most intelligence, he can negotiate with reality in a way that others might not. So therefore, these people would usually be in leadership in the ancient world, because the kings would look for the most qualified in order to run their kingdom. It was a matter of life and death. If a king didn't have the right advisors, then either it wouldn't last because of the internal conflicts, the internal jealousies and desires of the people close to the king, or from external sources. Another country, another king, might see him as weak and just overrun him with his army. And so therefore, advice was cherished. Wisdom was cherished. People understood and respected that one who understands life is superior to one who doesn't, because his behaviors and his speech will be in accordance with that. So therefore, people used to praise the spiritual. People used to praise those who devoted their life to the spiritual. For example, the priests. In every nation, the priests were at the top of the society. They were in charge of the society. They were the ones who were designing the way of life for society, because they knew how to create the rituals. They knew how to understand the spirit somewhat, each nation in accordance with their level of sophistication. And they would lead the people so that they know how to coexist with the spirit, so that the spirit doesn't become hostile to them, so that they don't get spit out from their very own bodies. And so people understood. People weren't stupid in the old world. People became stupid after the Greeks, when the mind started imagining and debating, and everything became an intellectual exercise and everything lost its meaning. But until then, everybody, the wise and the wicked, would realize the power of the spirit, and that it's necessary to know how to get along with it. It's necessary to know how to build the right experiences so that the spirit is happy, so that the spirit is content and gives intelligence, gives life force to the body, so that it can manifest, so that it can grow, so that it can mature in all the different areas of the brain that become activated as our species evolves. And so everybody knew that there's a spiritual force, generation to generation. Fathers told their sons, the sons told their sons, he is the only one that resides within wisdom. Everybody else is just talking. They talk and they talk and they never stop. But what did they really know? Did they have any idea what they're talking about? Is it even healthy to listen to that stuff? Probably not. So who resides in wisdom? Who's the only one that always resides in wisdom? That's the source of your spirit. If he leaves wisdom for 1 second, then we might interrupt our breath. That could be extremely dangerous. And so he hasn't left wisdom ever since he created life. He has made a commitment to wisdom in a way that we were allowed to build entire realities within this wisdom, and wisdom is holding it for us. It awaits us. As we simply intend that we want to think about it, it immediately becomes available and allows us to enjoy our hallucination. Isn't that wonderful? And so therefore, the people would pass on generation to generation the importance of the king, the importance of the source, the importance of the one that allows it to be the way that it is. Therefore, your name should become holy on your people. What does it mean? Your name should become holy upon your people. It means your people think of you in ways that are unholy. Your people have forgotten who you are, what you stand for, and what you ask of them. And therefore, your name has lost its glory. Your name has lost its power to motivate. And that's a big problem, because in reality, he is the power that motivates everything. There's nothing else that gives life. There's nothing else that gives force. There's nothing else that creates movement other than his power. No words can ever be said without his word, without his intelligence, and without his power, the power of speech. And so when we speak, regardless of what we're saying, we're using his power. We're using his force. So when Klal Yisrael will recognize the holiness of his name, when Klal Yisrael will recognize the holiness of himself, of the one that created life, of the wisdom that's involved in every single detail, in every single movement. Now, a moving lips, the detail that's involved in moving a lip would take hours or days to describe if it was even understood. But that's simply the physical side of it. That doesn't tell you anything yet about what it really means to move a lip. moving a lip has dimensions within the spirit that maybe in 1,000,000 years we'll still be discovering. Not within our bodies even if we've evolved to different states of being, still the experience that we had while we were within our bodies is going to continue being digested. And each time we digest it, we're going to find new pleasure in realizing the real meaning of every detail. So eventually we get to a place where we can contain the meaning of what it means to move a human lip from within the spirit. What does that do? How does that permanently change the spirit? As subtle as that change might be, that subtle change, because of the amount of joy, the amount of pleasure that realization gives to the spirit, it will grow so big that each detail will be bigger than a galaxy eventually. And so when Klal Yisrael will realize what they're interacting with, they very quickly will want to come and find appeasement. They'll very quickly want to come and recognize what they've been missing. So that's called that the name becomes holy. The name becomes holy means they realize the depth of wisdom that's within the name, the depth of wisdom that's within the life force that's represented by that name. Yerushalayim represents a physical space, but it also represents a space individually for each one of us. Yerushalayim represents the place where the spiritual meets the physical. And that place is the human heart. Within the human heart, the spiritual meets the physical. And that's where the residence of the being that you are is primarily located. And so his name should become so holy to you, to the spirit that lives inside your heart, that you want to dance. You want to realize his glory already. You're tired of all the games. You're tired of all the mundane tasks that society places on each other in order to keep each other busy so we can have our basic needs. And then, Val-Tzion Mishkan Kvedecho. Tzion and Yerushalayim are like a pair, like a male and a female. Yerushalayim is the male and Tzion is the female. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu should reveal himself within the male and within the female side of each being, and also within the males and the females on a very simple level, because each gender has a different perception of existence, has a different interpretation of reality at its base because of the different biology. So we're sort of looking at each other to understand the ultimate unity, to understand the root of why we are the way that we are. The kingdom of Beis David, the kingdom of Beis David refers to the kingdom of the man who designated his life to finding a way to create a foundation within humanity so that they can eventually realize wisdom. So David HaMelech wanted to create a house, create a resting place, create a symbolic residence for the spirit of truth that resides within those who protect their hearts from evil spirits. So David HaMelech was looking to clean the world from evil spirits, to clean the world from those evil spirits that have been so infested within the flesh that the flesh can no longer be redeemed from them other than through death. And therefore David HaMelech, Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, you cannot build a house for me because the purpose of my house is that there should be peace within humanity. The purpose of my house is that people should be able to be so comfortable on this planet until they gain access to the natural joy that is the response of their nervous system to a complementary environment. And so David HaMelech represented the force that's clearing out the evil, to make place for that, to allow the future, to allow his son to exist in a place where he can go through his entire life without having to fight a single war. And so all violence that we see in the Torah, all violence that we see in wisdom is a violence that's directed at the root of suffering. And that's turning the violence upon itself, so to speak, turning the aggression upon itself, turning the anger upon the anger, so that eventually they extinguish each other, so that eventually there's no anger left, there's no violence left. So the same way, David HaMelech would look for the root of evil so that he can exterminate those who have gotten into conflict with reality to such a degree that they can never make peace with reality any longer. And so this is the kingdom that needs to be returned. Many people are tough, many people use judgment, but they're not using it like King David. They're not using it in the way that he knew how to target. He had that internal connection to his source that guided his path, that made him know and understand who he's really interacting with. So we want HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name to become holy through this form of a kingdom that knows to stand up for its citizens, a kingdom that understands that the one who designed life is the king, and he is the only king, and every king's duty is simply to uphold that ultimate purpose. Which is the house and the room, the hall. All these represent different spiritual levels that can be attained when a person has the proper relationship with the spirit. So then we say, and therefore, so now we say, this is what we want should happen, right? So we want his name should become holy. Okay, beautiful. So why can't we just tell everybody that the Creator is kind? They should settle down. Let's get along and let's make a nice situation for ourselves. Where's the problem? The problem is people's attributes are not the way that they should be. People are not rational. People are doing things out of habit. People do things because that's the way their parents did. People think in a way that they were taught decades ago. And so therefore, you're not going to have the environment for kindness before this comes. Give the fear of you within all of your deeds. Which means one of the functions of the human body is to create fear. The human body creates fear whenever the situation seems to be hostile, seems to be threatening the well-being of the spirit. So now, humanity is going through different sufferings, and therefore, there is fear. Fear gets activated within the spirit, within the body. Cortisol getting released. Adrenaline. So then, that fact, that reality, can only be avoided if we rise to a very high level spiritually, if we can gain access to the kindness of the Creator. Like we said, if the Creator's name can become holy within our hearts. We're not there. So we're stuck with a state of fear. What we can do is we can direct it appropriately so that the fear that we are realizing in our bodies is attached to the right root within the spirit, so that the spirit understands its situation. So we don't allow the spirit to interpret its fear to anything external. The spirit should not be afraid of any human being. Which spirit has more rights than your spirit? And how would that spirit gain those rights? Based on whose authority? And so the spirit has to realize the true source of its fear. The true source of its fear is that the relationship that it has with reality, the relationship that it has with itself, is not properly secured, is not fully realized in a way that the body feels it. And so therefore we say, therefore, give your fear, meaning your fear, the fear that you've created within us, the fear that you've created within reality. Why are we afraid? Because we don't know yet how to get it right. We don't know how to fully protect ourselves. There are areas in life that cause us suffering and we don't know how to stop it. So we have fear. Give that fear so that people should realize that they're really afraid of you. Who is you? The source of life, the king. That's really who you're afraid. You're afraid of offending your nature. If somebody will tell you something you don't appreciate, is it going to affect you biologically? That depends on your nature. That depends on your relationship with yourself. That depends on your relationship with reality. And therefore, the true fear is maybe somebody will say something to me and then I won't be able to control how I feel. So who are you afraid of? You're afraid of yourself. If you'll be able to control how you feel, regardless of what anybody's saying, you wouldn't really care what they're saying. You're afraid of the suffering that comes when they said something and you can't escape the consequences within your spirit. And so therefore, give the fear its proper name. Give the fear its proper understanding. It's your fear. It's the fear of the king. It's the fear of the source. It's the fear of the designer. Maybe I will offend his design, and then I will suffer. Give the realization of awe to all those you've created. So the fear is inherent within all the deeds, but awe is in the ones created. The ones created means the ones that can think. The animals and the people. The animals and the people can have awe. Awe is an emotion. Let them fear you and bow down to you. Let them all make one big union. To do your will. What's your will? The will of the life force, the will of the Creator, the wisdom and the design that already is, with all their hearts. So none of their heart should be tied to an illusion. None of their heart should be tied to why isn't life some other way? Life is this way. Let's make it good. It's very good. It can be extremely good. But only if we're going to learn how to do it. Otherwise, we can make each other miserable, as we have been doing. We can even kill each other. We can even do horrible crimes to ourselves and not even know it. That's if we go into the imagination, if we lose touch with reality, if we lose touch with who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. Then we become the most dangerous thing on the planet. There's nothing more dangerous on this planet than a human being. And that's because of his gift. That's because of what he received. And that power is 1,000,000 times more powerful when it's expressed to the good, when it's trying to help, when it's trying to heal, when it's trying to manifest its purpose, when it's trying to get along with the king that created it. And so then he says, because we already know, we've spent the time to figure this out, we didn't just follow the herd. We know that you have all the power. You, the spirit that's talking, has all the power. All the power. We've decided. For thousands of years we've decided. We've just decided badly, that's all. We're still deciding. And we will continue to decide. And at any time, we can decide to decide good. And nobody can stop us. But till now, we've decided to decide bad. And nobody could stop us. So we know the truth. That the spirit that created life gives us life. We interpret it. And this has all the power. Between us, the one that decides, and the body that we were given, the vessel, everything gets decided. So if we know the vessel, we understand the king, then we can unite all the power to make humanity have the proper experience, the way that it was designed. There's nothing or nobody that would even want to stop us. Everybody's waiting for this. Everybody will applaud when it happens. They've been designed originally to applaud when this happens. They've been designed originally to dry up and to make a frown face on us when it doesn't happen. This is the design. This is how it was made on purpose. It even happens with human beings. You can observe, walk up to a human being, do something pleasing to him, he will smile. Do something not pleasing, he will frown. This is the nature of life. It doesn't just happen on the individual level. It happens everywhere. It happens with everything. Every association, every relationship. And so, we know Shasholtan Lefenecha. We know you have all the power. To us, it's no secret. Ois biyatcha. You have strength in your hand. Igvura b'minecha. And you have power within your right hand. So the yodcha is the left hand, and the gvura usually is in the left hand. But here he says you have power in both hands. We know that really you can punish with your kindness, you can reward with your judgment. You have all the power because you make the rules. There are no other rules. There are the rules made by the collective intelligence, by the original infinite intelligence designed by the infinite one that nobody can ever know. And then there is the human intelligence, the one that's interacting with it. Those two are the only ones that make any rules. There are no other rules. And so you have all the power. You have all the power. You can do whatever you want with whatever you want. Your name is awesome upon everything that you created, meaning that if somebody were to get a glimpse of who he's dealing with, he probably wouldn't survive. That's how awesome he is. It's not that he wouldn't survive because of, oh, what is he going to do to me? Not at all. It's just that when the spirit sees such sweetness, such aliveness, such depth of realization, it simply forgets itself. It gets seduced in an instant. It doesn't even remember what it looked like. And so your name is awesome to those who can contemplate it, to those who can get even a tiny bit of juice from that holy source. And therefore, it says, therefore, Tain koved Hashem lamechu, give glory to your people. Tehila lireyecha, give praise to those who fear you. V'sikva toiva ledarshecha, give good hope to those who are searching for you. So when a person is searching, when a person is on a journey, when a person is trying to accomplish something, whether it's physical or spiritual, what does he need in order to be tied to his success? What does he need as fuel to keep him going? And the answer is hope. Hope is what you get when you can't be there yet. So therefore, you're eating the hope. You're saying, I know now, I'm sacrificing now because the one I'm going to be later is going to appreciate it. And so it says, give glory to your nation. Give praise to those who fear you, because those who fear you need to be praised. What does one need when he's unsure, when he's insecure? Say he's working for somebody, he's serving a king and he's not really sure. He's afraid of what the king is thinking about him. What's going to give him reassurance? Praise of the king. If the king is praising him, then he says, oh, the king's heart's on my side, I'm okay. I can relax now. So give tehila lireyecha. And then it says, give good hope to those who are searching for you. Those who are searching for you, they any minute might just say, you know what? Everybody's looked for him. Everybody's tried. Nobody ever gets there. It's not attainable. So it says, give them hope, give them light so that they continue searching, so that they don't forget that the truth is their birthright. Everything else is a cheap fraud. Can't fall for it. Fischem peh means allow people that hope to you to have some type of excuse for the horrible things that are taking place on this planet. Give them a fischem peh. They believe in you, they believe in your wisdom, they believe in your kindness, and they tell everybody how kind you are. And then when horrible things happen, they don't even know how to answer for what's taking place. They don't know how to explain. So then they can't open their mouth. People come to them and say, yeah, you say he's good. Look at this, look at that. How do you explain? How do you explain? So then it says, give them a pischem peh, give them the intelligence to know how to answer, to know how to place the blame where it's due, to remember who causes human suffering, to remember the source of the confusion that happens in the human mind as he goes to war with reality. It says, simcha le'artzecha, happiness to your land, which also includes, like we always say, the body. There should be happiness in the body, good chemicals, so the spirit can rejoice, the spirit can appreciate its realizations. V'sasan li'recha, you give a deep joy to your city, right, internally. So give deeper joy to the heart. The heart has the capacity for more happiness than the rest of the body. It's smichas keren the David avdecho, the growing of a horn to David. So the horn used to represent glory. The horn used to represent accomplishment in wars to defeat the enemy. Because then when a person was winning, when a person was defeating the enemy, then he would be seen as somebody that inhabits the spirit of a beast, the spirit of the energies that fight wars. And so tzmichas keren is a type of raising the confidence level, raising the glory for David, for the one who is fighting the true war, for the one who is really looking to extinguish the evil at its source, because from the outside it will look similar. The anger of the holy man might look like the anger of the ignorant man, but there's a very different anger. The ignorant man is angry because his individual needs are not being met. The holy man is angry because the king, the design of life, is being violated. It's a very different anger. And so give the glory to win, to defeat the enemy, to those who are fighting for the collective, to those who care about the king, to those who care about the design, and not to those who care about their individual selfishness. A preparation of a candle to the son of Yishai that you've chosen to be your representative on this planet. So what does that mean, to prepare a candle? So preparing a candle means, like we've discussed in the past, that the way that the neshama, the way that the intelligence rests upon the human brain is similar to how a fire, a flame, rests upon a wick. And so when the Holy Spirit becomes activated within man, then it's like his candle has been lit. Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, the candle of the divine is the intelligence of the human being. So when the intelligence wakes up, the candle is lit. So prepare that candle for the son of Yishai. Prepare that candle for that spirit that's prepare that candle for the spirit that's been designed for this purpose, so that it can light the candles of the rest of humanity. And this spirit is alive in each generation. There's not a generation that doesn't have this spirit suffering through their imagined realities, trying to find its source, trying to find its realization. And only in the generation that is going to be pure enough, is going to be soft enough to realize this eventual truth, will this candle finally be lit. This candle has been lit occasionally throughout history for different individuals to different degrees, but we haven't yet experienced its full glory, and that's what we're looking forward to. Then the righteous, the pure, those who find pleasure in the spiritual, they will see and they will rejoice. They will recognize right away the transformation that's taking place. Those who think straight, those who have not contaminated their mind with crooked beliefs, with misunderstandings that cause one to get into conflict with the king, get into conflict with the design of life itself. So those people who are straight, they will experience deep bliss. The Chasidim and the kind, Berino Yogili. So they're going to be dancing and enjoying simple realization. These people won't need anything in order to rejoice. The realization itself will be enough to stimulate the entire nervous system until the body is transformed from a body that's conditioned and motivated by fear and suffering to a body that's conditioned and motivated by happiness and pleasure. And so that's the transition between the world that we experience where we fight with reality, where we rebel against the king, and a world that we experience when we're with reality, when we serve the king, when we surrender to the king. So there will be tremendous happiness. But not only that, all the crookedness, all the crooked spirits that were created by crooked people, that were created even in ancient times, from the very evil that came from the anger and the suffering of those who hurt each other in the early period of humanity, starting from Cain, from the first murder. So all those spirits from the blood that was spilled, and all those spirits who did the spilling of the blood, so all those spirits have to return to stop violating, stop offending the reality that they were created into. So at this time, when humanity will be transformed as a collective, so they will no longer be motivated by fear, they will no longer be motivated by suffering, they'll be motivated by joy, they'll be motivated by realization, by a desire for kindness. So then all these ugly spirits, all these distant spirits, the ones that misunderstood reality so deeply that they got into a war with it, they will finally shut their mouth, which means they will discontinue their influence upon our minds. Because once the mind is tuned in to the channels of pleasure, it can no longer understand the channels of suffering. It's no longer in that mindset. It can no longer see. It can no longer experience those vibrations. So as soon as we do that shift, all the crookedness is going to shut its mouth. Humanity's mind will settle down. All the different forces that try to destabilize you, try to cause you suffering, try to open those valves that want to give you chemicals you don't particularly appreciate, will disappear from your mind forever. All the evil that exists in the world will disappear like smoke. It's just a big smoke screen. All the suffering, all the wars, all the arguments, it's just a big smoke screen. All it is an angry human heart. That's all we're talking about. That's the condition that humanity was suffering from. An angry human heart. That was the single ingredient that killed all the billions of people that died in the hands of our very own species. This is not distant. This is not an ancient history. This is us. This is you and I. This is in the last century. That's the danger. That's what we're capable of if we forget who we are. But what are we capable of in the other direction? What's possible for this very spirit, for this very body that you already have? And not only is it possible, it was designed for it. In fact, it's the reason you're suffering. The reason you're suffering is because you are not experiencing the way that you were designed to experience. Your environment doesn't comply with the owner's manual. And therefore there's suffering. And so when the crookedness closes its mouth, then kol harisha kila koshen tichle. It's gone, man. The evil is gone. We do not have to discuss it any longer. We don't have to waste a single moment dealing with that stupidity. Enough is enough. We have real things to discuss. We have real things to study. The last thing we need to be doing is trying to figure out how to hurt each other. Because you're going to exterminate the exterminators. You're going to get rid of the governments that are memshele zodoim. What does it mean, memshele zodoim? Memshele zodoim means a rulership that rules by force. There will be no rulership by force. Rulership by force frustrates the spirit, makes the heart angry. No good. You don't have to be a genius to know this. Rulership by force is no good for humanity. it makes our species fight back. Before we even know who we are, we're already in some type of a conflict. And we shouldn't be. Shouldn't be developing those tools. We should be developing tools of deeper contemplation, of peace and joy and coexistence, of service to humanity. Those are the tools we want to create and develop in those who are going to coexist with us on our planet. So therefore, as soon as the Memsheler Zodain, the rulership by force, the rulership of those who know nothing, and yet they inflict their opinions upon the masses, once that's gone, all the other madness goes. Why? Because the heart's no longer angry. If the heart's not angry, there's no trouble. Once the troublemaker is gone, there is no trouble. And what remains? Then you only have one king. Nobody's fighting against the king. Everybody's okay. What happened? Nothing happened. That's the whole point. Nobody's frustrating nobody. So now, reality is king. The truth is king. No more manipulation. No more narcissists trying to inflict their opinions on other people. No more madness. No more angry human hearts. Then the divine is king. Within the male heart, within the female heart. So they can unite, so they can create children that were conceived in kindness, that were conceived in perfection. Let the divine name be king for eternity. The Lord of the heart. Generation to generation. Hallelujah. Praise the Spirit. Praise the Lord. Praise the power within all that gives it life. So this power will be king when the evil leaves the planet. The evil leaves the planet when human learns how to get along. Humanity will know how to get along. No more evil on the planet. No more evil on the planet. Then we start appreciating all the different goodies that have been designed specifically for us by someone who loves us very, very dearly. He loves us so much, he decided that we must exist. Kodesh Atav Shemecha, you're holy, your name is awesome. There is no divinity other than yours. There's no force, there's no movement, there's no existence other than from that single source, the very source that gave you everything you got. Kakosiv, like it says, Vayik Shem Tov b'mishpat. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when the world has justice, when humanity learns how to interact appropriately, then the name, the glory of the armies, the divine armies that create our experience, become elevated, become lofty. Then we start realizing right now, most of humanity is not impressed by the divine forces. It doesn't even realize what type of perfection the divine forces present on a constant and consistent basis. And so they don't realize it because they're suffering. And if they're suffering, they don't really care how nicely it all works together. If the end result is that I don't like it, then what's the point? But nevertheless, when humanity will learn how to get along, then the name will rise. People will realize, oh, wait a minute, hang on. I never noticed what's going on over here. I never really thought about it. This is crazy. The fact that I'm here, the fact that I can do what I'm doing, I can make these noises and people will even want to listen to them, that is not understandable by the imagination. The imagination gets blown away. Everything it ever considered doesn't come close to the complexity and the perfection of what's being demonstrated in this very moment. And we all do it, and we do it constantly, and we do it very well. And so only when we get along and we're not suffering can we start appreciating the reality of what it is. This power, this force, how does it become more sanctified? How does it become more realized, more holy, more connected to its source wisdom? Through tzedakah, through human beings that give each other pleasure. That's the nature of tzedakah. Tzedakah means that we see the other as us. We understand that we are the same. We understand that we have the same needs. We understand that we were designed and created to provide for each other. We're a social species. We need each other's acknowledgement. We need each other's kind words. We need the chemicals that we receive by being in the presence of other human beings and not being judged and being allowed to grow, being allowed to develop, being allowed to explore and feeling safe doing so. So when we do tzedakah, when we give each other pleasure, then the divine force becomes holier, because then we realize the power of the human spirit. We realize how much really our destiny is in the hands of the one that thinks for us. And the one that thinks for us, that power, that force, thinks for all of us. And that force becomes holy and sanctified and powerful when we use that force appropriately. And that force was created so that we can do kindness with each other. It was designed for this purpose, and it feels very good. So therefore, we come to this realization as we come to the recognition of what it's going to require to clear the earth of the evil spirits, to make life ready for what it was designed to be. So it says, Baruch Ata Hashem, blessed are you, the name. And when we would say something is blessed, it means that it receives more life, that it receives more realization. So someone that's blessed, for example, in the Torah, it would be that they have many children and they have many possessions, and the things that they have good life, good health. So there's quality and quantity in the blessing. The blessing is more life, more realization, more deeper experience. That's blessing. And that blessing comes from the same source from where we receive life in the first place. So when we receive life, we receive it based on the vehicle, based on the vessel that we're inhabiting. And how the way we took care of that vessel is going to dictate how we're going to receive the light and how much of it we can receive. So when the name gets blessed, it means that we have a deeper realization of life. We receive more life. And we receive more life from who? From HaMelech HaKodesh, from the Holy King, the Divine King, the Divine Will that wants us to be. And that's why we are. So that King is holy, that King is recognized. So in the regular time, we say, Baruch Ata Hashem Hokel HaKodesh, the divine force, the holy divine force. And now we call him King. And this is because, like we said, this is the time of the year where we connect with this aspect of our experience. We connect with the fact that we are evolving to become something specific. It's not just wild country, we can do whatever we want and everything is going to be safe. There's a specific design. If the design is properly played out, then you're going to realize it, and then you're going to have the pleasures that are involved, the realizations, the physical settings of the nervous system so that your body feels right. And then you become who you are. But when this king is not respected, when we think that things are random, that whatever we do is not going to have to be reconciled with some truth, with some reality, then we go off into the imagination, and that's extremely dangerous. then we can go on a rant and on a rave and completely lose track of reality. And this is why we have Rosh Hashanah. This is why we have the immersed in. It's to wake people up to remember that there is a reality that's extremely kind, that's extremely good. And we need to discover that reality. What did you do in this cycle of life? Where did you spend your life force in this substantial period of time? A year is a very substantial part of our life. How did you spend it in order to discover more truth, in order to discover more life, in order to make the name of your Creator holy? Because only when the name will be holy, so that everybody bows down to it, so that everybody respects reality and knows its importance, then will the spirits heal. Then will the spirits recognize their true nature. And this is the concept of Yom Kippur. Everything is forgiven if you realize reality. But the more you don't realize the reality and you create conflict, the more there's going to be suffering, and therefore it's going to be difficult to realize reality, because it's going to be difficult to make peace when there's so much suffering, there's so much complication. So usually the way that it works is, in the beginning of our lives, our body is fresh, nature created it perfect for the most of us, and it just interacts with life in a very smooth way. And then the suffering starts to accumulate. And only when the suffering pushes us far enough do we go looking for a different truth. And then we discover the reality, and now we have to find a way to forgive the suffering. The way to forgive the suffering is the realization that this is what gave us access. This is the only way that we even went looking in the proper manner where we were ready to surrender to reality in the first place. And so it would be much easier to surrender to reality if we didn't suffer first, on a practical level, right? But in reality, people are not going to go there, people are not going to think that way unless they suffered first and they were forced to think that way. And then there's that process of realization, there's the process of forgiveness, there's the process of having to deal with the trauma, deal with the difficulties of a spirit that's in conflict with itself. The spirit that's in conflict with reality, it's the same thing. The spirit and reality are indistinguishable. And so this went pretty long, so I think we'll stop over here. And I hope this gives a bit of an insight into the coming days, so that we don't misunderstand the message, so that we don't assume that some horrible reality is looming and trying to force its way into our lives. The reality that has been waiting for us patiently or impatiently is extremely pleasing, is extremely kind. We, on the other hand, some of us are not that kind. And for those, there will be a transition process, because there's no choice. They're already not kind. They're already in a deep state of frustration. So they might as well direct that frustration at the right source to realize what's really their problem. And then after that suffering, they'll be able to realize reality, surrender to it, accept it, and then enjoy it, appreciate it, share it with those who the divine wisdom designed to be next to him, to participate in this mysterious experience together with. And so all of us have circumstances that are harder for us to digest. This is the nature of life. And we all decided at some point what is important to us, what we're going to allow, what we're going to stand up to, what is acceptable, what is unacceptable, what other people will approve of, what other people don't allow. And all these things cause us to get into conflict with different realities, because how could we have known? We couldn't have known what's to come. You know, life comes at us, and it's certainly not what we thought it will be as children. So there's no real way. And all those little opinions that we created, if we created them too deeply within our minds, they become conflicts with reality. So we need to constantly update. And this is what this time of the year is. Update, remember how this works. You are living within a reality that's already here, that's already existing. You don't get to design it. It was already designed by somebody that knows how to design. You can trust it 100%. It's more reliable than anything you can come up with, anything you can even think. But at the same time, you need to surrender to it. You need to surrender to everything that already happened before this very moment. All of it. All of it is the desire of the king. Who's the king? Whoever he is, the one that got to decide, and it was already decided, and it's over. Maybe it was you. You're also part of the king. Maybe you decided something that now you think you shouldn't have decided. That's also already not yours to decide. The king already accepted your suggestion. You did what you did. You said what you said. You thought what you thought. Now is not the moment that's going to change that. Now is the moment that's going to be better if you learn how. So this time is a time of din. It's a time of judgment, not the type of judgment that's coming to bring you down, not the type of judgment that's coming to restrict you, the type of judgment that's coming to make sure that you comply with your greatness, to make sure that you receive what's due to you. What's due to you is extremely good, regardless of your opinion. Imagine a king's son, right? This is the parable they use most, so we'll go there. And he's in some distant town away from his father. His father threw him out of the palace because he misbehaved, and the whole story. And so he's been away for years, long forgotten his father. He doesn't really have a proper job because in the palace they taught him all kinds of fancy stuff, but not really how to work and get along with the boss. And so he's getting himself into all kinds of trouble. And then one day, the police show up and they're looking for him. In his mind, he is certain that this is about what he just did yesterday. He got himself into trouble. He fought with somebody or something. And he's making all kinds of excuses of what he's going to say and why it really wasn't his fault. And he started it and all that. And like that, he goes and he goes. But suddenly, they're not taking him to the courthouse. They're taking him to a fancy wagon strapped to 8 horses. And now he's confused. And so what really happened is his father wanted him home. His father was, from the day that he left, he didn't feel the same. And he's been missing him to the extent they didn't care anymore what he did. He just wanted to see his face again. He just wanted to see his smile. And so he sent a delegation to get the son. But the son, in his little mind, busy with his little story, he is certain that, oh, they're calling me, I'm probably in trouble. So when Rosh Hashanah comes, the king is calling us. And it's not because we're in trouble. It's because he misses us. He doesn't want us to go a year without remembering our destiny, without remembering our purpose, without remembering the original thought, which is the reason why we're going through all these sufferings. So he misses us. He wants to see our face. He wants to see us smile. So we can try, as difficult as it might be sometimes,